There's nothing to fear but fear himself. This is your look at the new Diamond Select Batman Scarecrow Gallery Diorama statue. As a young child, Jonathan Crane was subjected to sick and twisted experiments on fear conducted by his own father. Emotionally scarred and mentally unstable from the ordeal, Crane spent his childhood living in fear until he made an important realization. If he could control fear, it would never again control him. Over time, this interest in fear became an obsession. Graduating from college with a doctorate in psychology and specialty in phobias, Jonathan began experimenting on others, subjecting them to hallucinogenic fear toxin he developed that brought out their worst nightmares. Although Batman has developed a number of remedies to counteract these toxins, Crane is constantly improving his formula, creating more potent and deadlier versions. His gallery diorama of Scarecrow is based on his appearance in DC Comics. It's made of high-quality PVC and features detailed sculpting and paint applications. It was designed by César and sculpted by Alterton. Seeing as we are coming up to Oh Hallows Eve, it would be so fitting, of course, to be having a look at someone that induces fear in others, and that is the Scarecrow himself. Before we get a closer look at the gallery release of him, of course, we're going to first figure out how tall the statue stands. Good news, I found this at my local comic book store, so that should mean if you're in the market of picking this one up for yourself, you could find them around various online sites, or hey, check out your local comic book stores as well. Gallery diorama statue release of Scarecrow stands 10.3, or almost 10.5 inches in height. And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at the statue standing 26.2. So he's a little over 26 centimeters in height. One neat aspect to this particular statue is it does take a very small footprint. Sometimes when we do get gallery statue releases from Diamond Select, they tend to be of larger display bases. And this one is actually not that much bigger when you look at it to Scarecrow himself. Let's get a closer look at the display stand, and then of course we'll examine all the rest of the cool aspects on this particular statue release of Scarecrow. So getting a good gander first at his display base bottom. As I said, it's generally quite a small footprint. That's what it looks like on the underside. Not the most exciting. Yeah, I know, we can skip right through that. The top, though, however, depicts, I'm guessing, the top of a hill, because if you look at the way the fence posts are at the back, and I'm going to talk about those in a second, it kind of seems like it's all forming a point. Like you would imagine, like this would be the bottom, this would be the top, and the rest of the hill is below him. As you can see, though, one neat touch is, I'm guessing this is fear toxin that's oozing its way across the top, all done with these bubbled effects, different colors of green incorporated in there as well. And one noted calling card of the bats, a giant batarang that's lodged in there. My guess is Batman's probably throwing a couple of these, and this one happened to land on a fear toxin. Or it is possible as well, by the fact that the shape of his hand maybe could dictate the fact that Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane himself, had a fear toxin in his hand. Batman knocked it out of his hand with the batarang, and it's come careening down, smashing across the bottom of the base. That's a little bit of the story that I want to tie to the statue. But the base bottom is really quite nice and cleverly painted here. The top sort of has almost a moss look to it, done in a coloring of swamp green. It looks like there's a lighter color of green that's sort of just touched in a few areas. Of course, there are a few little stones placed all around the bottom of the base. But again, I feel like this is maybe the top of a hill, just again by the shape of that. It's rather odd, the shape of it, if it was just a flat area terrain, and this just happens to be one little lump of it. But again, I kind of feel like there's a whole lot more of the hill just below it. Anyways, though, if we spin the statue around, again, you have all these little picket fences, what looks almost to be tied together with barbed wire. Don't worry, they're not real sharp barbed wire. They are made of molded PVC plastic. I do like the fact that there's a little bit of an edge to it, though, that it's not just regular fence posts. That they added a little bit more scariness to it by incorporating the barbed wire effect. It's all been molded and done in PVC black plastic, but then it does look like they've painted the edges of it, just those bird sections in silver. I really do also like the touches of detail that they added to each of the individual posts, where again, you probably are using a darker color, which this one happens to be almost sharing the same color as the bottom of the base, but then they've dry brushed over top of it, this real old look of wood. And I must say it's rather effective on the statue's base here. Of course, prime time is to be looking at the Scarecrow head sculpt, and really happy with how this one turned out. It's those little touches of detail that I really do like. Specifically, I like the fact that they gave him a really large rimmed hat instead of something small. It does a good job that, if you would imagine, this would cast quite a bit of a shadow across his face, that you would only see very little details to a rather gruesome, scary looking mask. He definitely does live up to the name of Scarecrow, representing the tied up burlap sack mask that he wears, and the very crude looking stitched mouth that he has across the front. I do like that there's little opened areas where his eyes can still peer through. He's looking up at something. So maybe Batman is up here, and he's thrown the Batarang down, knocking the vial out of his hand, and again, smashing across the base bottom here. The coloring is really quite good on this. A lot of it, yes, is just mostly browns, but the different use of browns is what I think I like the most about this, that it's not all the same brown. Yes, there's some caramel colored browns, lighter versions of that, and yes, even like the shadowing that they added to it are all still browns, but there's enough change to it in place that you don't get tired looking at the statue. I mean, the more I do sit and admire the statue, the more I really am quite pleased with the amount of paintwork that they put into it. Even like those little stitch lines, the stitches that he's cruded together this costume. You can see that they've added a darker airbrushing of brown around that, just to really accent those areas. The ropes are also a nice touch. He's got it wrapped around the bottom of his leg, just below the kneecaps, right above the ankles. And of course, he's also got it around his arms, his waist, and most notably, around the area of his neck as well. I do really like the design of this one quite a bit. The only thing that could have made this just that much cooler is if they had just made the hat slightly curl down just a little bit more than what it is. But that's just from my own personal preference. Again, I love the stitch work that they did to it. The back of it, I don't know if the camera's picking it up or not, but it's very much different color on the front of it than to the back of the hat. It's almost like they've painted it in such a way that it looks like it's got its own natural shadow happening on the back of the figure. A lot of cool dark colors that they also incorporated to it. I don't know if you can see it or not. Hopefully the camera can do it justice. But the pattern work that they added to the actual material of his costume sort of has kind of looks like a burlap sack, doesn't it? But the amount of color that they put into this is really quite impressive. Again, you've got the darker coffee browns, the lighter, more caramel browns, and then almost a honey yellow that they've added to the surface of it are all really, really nice touches. Seeing Scarecrow wielding a pitchfork may not necessarily be too strange. Seeing Scarecrow wielding a pitchfork that has this organic design, though, is rather strange. It's not your traditional conventional pitchfork you would expect to find inside a barn. Instead, this kind of looks like he literally just found a tree limb and carved it down by hand to give it that look of a pitchfork. Or he may have just lucked out completely and walked along the trails and found something that looked close enough of a resemblance to a pitchfork that he's decided to carry this around with him. You could technically, if you want to, remove the pitchfork completely, and you could just display him as is. I don't think it's a case where it looks like he should have something with him. In fact, with the one sculpt of his gripped hand and the other hand more of a shocked hand, it kind of looks, if anything, like he's been caught by surprise by the Cape Crusader. I think for my personal purpose for displaying him, I probably will be displaying him with the pitchfork, because it just adds a little extra oomph to it. It also does add some much needed coloring as well, because so much of Scarecrow is different shades of brown. You could probably count off 6 to 8 different colors of brown that they used for the surface of Scarecrow. That some much needed yellow definitely does go a long way. And maybe, again, that's one of the reasonings why they incorporated the green. So it's just not all different shades of gray, beige, and brown. Some nice detail work also even done to the actual handle, where it does look like, it does almost have like a wood look to it. I'm not sure the coloring. I don't expect to find many things in the forest that resemble this in color, so maybe he's gone ahead and painted it. But I do think they've done a real bang-up job of simulating a carved-out wood piece that Scarecrow has wielded in his hand here. Truly loving the design of Scarecrow here that Diamond landed with when it came to their choosing of what Scarecrow should look like. And it's hard because Scarecrow has had, like every other villain from the Batman Rogues Gallery, has had very different looks throughout the years of the comics, throughout the years of the different animated series. That this one I feel feels more rooted firmly into like the late 80s, early 90s of me reading Batman and Detective Comics, where I felt like Scarecrow resembled this a little bit more so. And while I don't think he's closer to the Batman animated series, which it brought in more reds and stuff and got away from using the browns, I do feel like this is kind of a Scarecrow I would expect to find in an earlier animated series of Batman. Not the animated series, but like animated series that came out before that, where Burt Ward and Adam West would reprise at least voicing the Cape Crusader and the Boy Wonder. This is sort of that Scarecrow I would expect to see from those animated series. Truly is one of the best Scarecrow statues. We don't really have a lot of Scarecrow statues, do we? But if we did, and if I could pick a Scarecrow statue as being like a definitive look, it definitely would be this one, released by Diamond Select. One point I'm sure I've mentioned in a previous review, and the thing I always find funny is when you do talk to other fans of the same thing, how each person can have a completely different opinion about the way that, say, a character should look, whether it be Batman or any one of Batman's Rogues Gallery. If you talk to anybody, they have their own unique, this is the way this character should look for me, or this is my favorite look of this character. And I always think that's really interesting when you talk to different people, how they all have different opinions from one another. Scarecrow for me, I mean, if you even look at the character himself, how he's changed so much over the comic pages over the years, how he's changed so differently in the cartoons that he's appeared in, how he's changed so differently in the video games, and even the Nolan Batman Begins, how they are all same, Jonathan Crane, but how they're all so unique from one another. You can really say, specifically point at this one and say, this is my favorite look of Scarecrow. For me, at least, as a collector of these statues, this is the ideal look for Scarecrow for me. Loving the large rimmed hat, the fact that he looks like a raggedy, stitched-together man that you would see almost strung out in the middle of a field somewhere with crows hovering around him. That's the way I like Scarecrow, and I feel like Diamond captured that perfectly with their release of their gallery diorama statue of Scarecrow. He's got a lot of good things going for him. He has a rather interesting looking pitchfork as well, and even though he's got a lot of browns going, he's literally head to toe brown. Even if you look at there's so many different nuances of brown, some darker shades from one another. So even though it's all brown, there's so many different colors of brown that they use to it that it's still very inviting to the eye. The one thing I really like about the gallery statues too is the way that they pose them and the way that they set out their diorama base. It really does play out a story. I'm guessing, from the way I'm looking at this at least, is that Batman just has stopped Jonathan Crane from having a fear toxin maybe in his hand. He has knocked it out of his hand and it's splashed in front of him with that one lone batarang lodged into the ground. And again, I really like that about the Diamond Select releases, is that you look at them and your imagination starts running wild, coming up with these scenarios and stories for how the statue looks the way that it does. Something also I get a lot of from you guys, the viewing audience, is I want to get into statue collecting, but it just seems like a really expensive route to go. Well, it can be, but I think the route to best go and get you into statue collecting is really go the route of gallery statues. Being that they're kept and produced in PVC plastic really does keep the cost down on these, so that you do get a really nice looking statue like Scarecrow that we looked at in this review, and the price point isn't going to set you back too much. I think this one, when I got this at my local comic book store, was about $60 to $70, and I think that's a fine price to be paying for such a great looking Scarecrow. I know, admittingly, I'm probably biased because I'm usually somebody that goes more towards getting the DC statues than the Marvel ones, but even like the Marvel ones are delivered so well by Diamond, I would love to see more, personally speaking at least, I would love to see more DC gallery statues. They have that Bane out right now, and I think they have a Catwoman that I would love to add to my collection. But I mean, this is such a solid looking Scarecrow. Definitely the best looking Scarecrow design, at least if you ask me. But again, there's nothing wrong if you like the Arkham version of Scarecrow, for example, over this one. That's the beauty of collecting and talking to different fans, is that we all have different opinions for how the way these characters should look. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of the Scarecrow here. And also, actually, let's just have a little bit of fun with this. What's your favorite design of Scarecrow? And it could be anything. It could be from the earlier, it could be from like Challenge of the Super Friends. It could be like the mid-'80s. It could be the Batman animated series. It could be the video games. It could be the Nolan universe Scarecrow. What is your favorite Scarecrow design? Let me know down below in the comment section. And also, if you're new to this channel and liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below. And of course, move over to that bell notification. You've asked me, why is that bell notification there? I don't know. I never created YouTube. I just know apparently it's you get those notifications so that when I have new videos going up, you hit that bell notification, you get that friendly reminder. I can also throw in a friendly reminder that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when new videos pop up on that channel, on this channel. That's a friendly reminder. Definitely lots of stuff coming your way, guys, so keep your peepers peeled for that. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.